Good morning, everyone. Welcome to an insurance chat with Debbie Scarborough. I am Debbie. I live in Tifton, Georgia, and I've been in the insurance industry now for almost 23 years. I've done a lot of different things in insurance. What I'm doing now as an AMBA benefits rep is probably my favorite job, and I think I found my home as far as insurance jobs. But being with all the things that I've done in insurance, I think the part that I've kind of liked the best is just helping insurance make sense. Whether it was something I was able to help someone purchase or just help advise them about it. I kind of look at it as my ministry of helping people maneuver insurance talk and on insurance language. But I'm glad you're joining us Saturday morning at 8 a.m. And I have a wonderful guest. I find that easier to have a guest with me. And Wendy is the Empress of MS and also has an insurance background and lives in Wisconsin. So I'd love to introduce you to Wendy.
Good morning, Debbie. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Good morning. So I know you've got a lot of different things you've done. You've been in the book Fired Up. Mm-hmm. We know you as the Empress of MS. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I think, like you mentioned, having an insurance background really opened my eyes to how I can help people. And I have just been on this mission to help people that have chronic illness now after taking a break from insurance and taking time to let my body heal and just finding the things that I can change in my life to help myself feel better. And I guess that's my mission now, is in that direction of mentoring women that have health challenges or other life challenges, just to help them live the best life that they can.
Very good. And I'm sure you've been able to mentor people with MS and help guide them on what to expect, because it's been how long ago were you diagnosed with MS?
Actually, I started having symptoms when I was about 16, but it took 6 years to get diagnosed. So, it's probably 35 years now.
Oh, wow. Very good. Tell us a book about Fired Up. I remember reading your part in that book. Tell us about Fired Up.
Yes, I wrote my first book when I was 10, and I've always wanted to write another one since, but it just seems so daunting. So when Rebecca VJ talked to me about being a part of the project, I thought it was a perfect entry point into the whole book publishing authorship world. And it was actually number one in the MS category on Amazon for all 4 weeks that it's possible. So I just believe this is just another piece of my story that hopefully can help other women, whether it's dealing with financial challenges, health challenges, and all the other stories in the book are just so authentic and raw and meant to help other people. And I think it's really helped me see that I need to write my own book. And it's been on my heart this year. And I know the year's kind of dwindling down, but I still think I can get a lot of it done.
Well, very good. Well, we look forward to reading that.
Thank you.
What else can you tell us about yourself? Married?
Yes, I am married and I have 2 boys. I guess they're still teenagers. One's 19, the other one is 17.
Okay, and they're almost there.
They're getting there, yeah.
Those are the fun ages, right? Where they're kind of off on their own. They want to be. And yeah, I have 2 boys. They're 24 and 26. So they're totally gone.
Oh.
It's kind of interesting. And they're moving in that direction of sort of coming back a little bit. And I don't have to tell them what to do. I don't have to be the bad guy to say no.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to watch them grow up. But I would still take the 2-year-old and 4-year-old, anytime, because they were a lot of fun.
Yes, because you're their whole world, and it's I have a 3-year-old living in my house, my niece and her 3-year-old son. So it's really nice to come bouncing downstairs. Hey, Debbie, yeah, Debbie. And yeah, now
Oh,
as young adults, yeah, they're off doing their own thing and moms don't know anything.
yeah, that's right. But like you said, they
Yes,
come back around.
yes, that's the fun part. And if we do it really right, they bring back children. They get
Yes.
married, bring a wife, and then bring children along. So that's
Hmm.
kind of fun too.
Yeah.
So, what type? I know I have done insurance from being an underwriting assistant, workers' comp, to working with an independent agency doing commercial insurance, home auto, life, and now with this, I love this. We primarily work with retired educators, state
Mhm.
employees in that realm, but we provide those supplemental um, policies. But what was your insurance background?
Well, I was only in two different offices during my career, and they were both independent agents. So
Mhm.
I started out just doing personal lines, and then I went into small business. And then when I changed jobs, I was doing everything. I was doing life and health, I was doing commercial, I was doing personal. And as you can imagine, I got very stressed out. So
Yes.
that's why I needed a break.
Yes, I would have to say being on the independent agency side was you had your feet in every door. You handled them when they called, you handled the quoting, you handled managing their account to claims to every aspect of their account. And it could be very stressful.
Yeah, it is very stressful. And I'm the kind of person that if I say something, I do it. I don't
Yep.
make promises and then not do it, or say I'm going to call back. So that, you know, being like that type of a person, you work way more than 40 hours a week. And I was actually working from home when my first son was born back in
Mm,
2003, before working from home was a thing. So we had a
yep.
VPN set up to the office, and I was taking calls all day on the weekends. It was
Oh,
just
wow.
crazy. And that was my
Wow.
fault for not setting boundaries.
Yeah, I think as women, that's probably our hardest thing to set boundaries at home, at work, everywhere. I was at the point doing personal lines, home and auto, had a couple relationship with car dealerships. So I found myself on a Saturday or Sunday trying to get auto insurance for a customer that was wanting to buy a car. So, you life stops and you go to your computer and you take 50 minutes or an hour to get that taken care of because it needs to be done right then. So
Mm-hmm.
I've had
Right.
a lot of experience with just about everything. And um, what were struggles with health insurance through your diagnosis with MS? Did you have?
I didn't really have any struggles because I was on a group plan through my
Yeah.
husband's work. So, but I know that is a huge issue trying to find good health insurance. And once you have been diagnosed with a chronic illness, it is really difficult to, have a good policy. So
Right,
I feel for the people that aren't able to be locked in under a group plan.
right. And with Affordable Care Act, that has allowed some people to get insurance, but again, it has its limits of what it can do depending on what state people are in. And then I know I have a couple friends here in Georgia that have insurance through the Affordable Care Act, and their deductibles have gone up every year. Um, and it almost makes it hard with someone with a chronic, even though they can get insurance because they're not supposed to look at history, but it affects their rate.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like we have a question about MS and what were some symptoms you have?
Well, what multiple sclerosis is, it's an illness, it's an autoimmune illness that affects your central nervous system. So this is why every person is affected differently, and it can vary from hour to hour even. You might look fine 1 minute, and if you're somewhere where, say, the heat affects you and you overexert yourself, then you might have problems walking. Or my problems have been with my vision. I lost my vision in my one eye for probably a month. Not completely, but it looked like there was like something over my eye. And that is really a scary symptom. You wonder if that is coming back.
Right.
But I've just had a lot of balance issues, a lot of feelings of numbness in my feet, like I have, real thick socks on all the time. Or, the falling, the tripping. And living in Wisconsin, it's hard to be outside in the winter because of the ice.
Oh.
You take one wrong step and you're on the ground.
Yeah. Wow. Very good. I know with insurance and MS, there are a lot of supplemental policies. Did you find any help or relief from any supplemental insurance that you had?
Not really, because, for example, for disability, I actually started filling out the paperwork and then I had a really bad relapse. So then there was no way I was receiving that type of a policy.
Okay.
And I think, I'm not sure if do you handle life insurance? Okay. Because I know there's, in some of my policies, there's a waiver of premium, and a lot of people take these policies out and maybe don't realize the benefits that are on there, where the company would be helping them with the premiums because of that waiver of premium addition. Or just how important it is to have someone guide you through that, to make sure that coverage is on there in case you are unable to work.
It is very important. Most life insurance policies, you're right, offer different waivers, from accidental death, which increases or doubles the premium, or the waiver of premium, especially for those that are still working, where your income is very important. And not everybody has a company where you can get disability insurance, because that adds up. And I know with my husband and I, he's retired Navy, moving around, we put things off, like, oh, well, when we can afford it, or once we get settled. So you avoid buying some of the supplemental policies that go on. So I was that way with the cancer policy. I knew that I had history, but avoided even thinking about purchasing a cancer policy when someone would approach me about it. And now, with that's something I do and talk to many women about, or men. Usually it's the call, can I still get a cancer policy? I've got to go back and have a biopsy. It's like, no, you can't buy them when you think you're going to need them. You've got to put things in place prior to. So it's very hard for us to sit down, and it's important to find somebody. And I don't know, with you, working with an independent agent is always better than somebody who's just streamlined with one company or two companies. Independent agencies, those differences is they represent different companies. So I have a heart and stroke plan, and we have Mutual of Omaha and we have Cigna. And in the beginning, Mutual of Omaha didn't like diabetics. Well, diabetics are at a higher risk for heart and stroke. Cigna would take a diabetic for a heart and stroke policy if they didn't use insulin. So, and now 3 years later, Mutual of Omaha will now take diabetics even on insulin, as long as their A1C is 7 or less. So it's always important to look at your options, even if you looked at them at one time and couldn't get something. And then I know we have a question about, am I able to get long-term care policy if I have MS? And that's a hard one. And a lot of times the answer is yes. And then a lot of times the answer is no. There are different programs out there for long-term care. The good news is I find those policies are what they call short-term care or hybrid policies. We have a great plan with Aetna. It doesn't specifically ask some questions, but it looks at your medication list that you're on. So some of those are easier to get on the short-term care
Mm,
because they don't look at medical records and they're asking different knockout questions. So
okay.
I wouldn't say it's ever impossible to get long-term care. You just have to shop around. And of
Hmm.
course, life insurance is another place to get long-term care as a rider to a life insurance policy.
Hmm. So, as far as protecting the whole family, looking at that from that viewpoint, do you have policies when like a baby is born so that they have, a good running start for protecting themselves, something that they can expand on?
Yes, we have Mutual of Omaha's Children's Whole Life. Um, and that's a great program because parents can get that or grandparents can purchase that. And it is that first line of defense for children. I think when I talk to a lot of people about life insurance, especially with young children, they're like, what do you mean life insurance for children? Well, to me, I have a niece who was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes at age 4, and getting life insurance probably is almost impossible to get
Hmm.
something reasonable. But when you put those in place at 1 or 2 years old, those life insurance policies follow them. You lock in a rate of $5, $7, $9 a month for the rest of their life, up to 50,000 um, whole life insurance. Plus, as they become adults and hopefully they start paying their life insurance policy, then they have 5 opportunities to increase that coverage
Mm.
without any underwriting. So there would
Oh,
be no questions, especially if a diagnosis of MS comes up or diabetes or even a cancer diagnosis. So they can increase at their birthday. So if they're 24 and they want to increase coverage, it's based on 24 birthdays and how much they want to increase it to. But it's a great plan to put in place as a parent, as a grandparent, as soon as you can.
mm-hmm.
It's usually after they're about 6 weeks old is when you can start putting those in place, and they're very easy to do. So good
And
question.
I think it's really important, even though I've had family members say, well, why would you want to profit if something happens? And that's not the idea. It's like you said, it's planning, it's paving their path for their future
Yes.
and not just for, if something, heaven forbid, happens, to help them have options.
And the good news, I've heard of a couple grandparents who put some of these policies in place to build cash value. Granted, you're paying a small premium, so their cash value doesn't build up to a lot, but at some point, it can be a cash in option. Of course, I wouldn't ever recommend them cashing it in if they didn't have other life insurance in place, but it's always an option to build that cash value.
Sure.
Oh, we got another MS question. And why did it take so long for an MS diagnosis?
I think the reason it takes so long is because it might mimic so many other illnesses. And I saw probably 6 neurologists when I was younger. And the final, I had an MRI, which that was a battle with the insurance company because it wasn't really those weren't being used for diagnosing MS at the time.
Yep.
What finally diagnosed me was a spinal tap, where they found certain cells or abnormal cells, and that, I guess, was the turning point. And I don't think that didn't help anything, having a label for it, because now you're just tagged with something.
Right. Sometimes it's hard to know, but then once you know, then you know. But at least have you been able to find a good community of of people to talk to, a good doctor to be a good advocate for?
I did have a good doctor, but he retired.
Mm.
And I think that was probably my turning point. Was I was in pretty rough shape, and that's when I decided to take a break from the insurance and just to focus on my own health. And I think that turning point is really what led me to figuring out, things that I can stop doing or stop using, just products in our homes that we don't even think about, synthetic chemicals and inflammatory foods and all these different aspects. There isn't just, just because you're diagnosed with something doesn't mean that's the end of it. Now it's up to you to navigate it.
Right. Find those triggers.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure stress probably is a big trigger.
Yes.
So very good.
So back to the life insurance, I think it's so important, like you said, to have someone you trust and
Right.
just to avoid financial disaster for your family. And that's something nobody wants to talk about. So I talk about it a lot to recommend people just sit down and figure out what you have and what you need and what it would take to cover your monthly expenses. And just to start there.
Yeah, a lot of people still don't understand term insurance, whole life, universal. When is it important to set up one or the other? And my question is always, yes, all of them. Depending on what's going on in your life, it's always a good time to set up everything for a lot of different reasons. And that's why it's so important to talk to someone that can go through all of the scenarios, help you find out what your needs are, because as a young couple raising children, your insurance needs are going to be a lot. Your needs are a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we retire and slow down, our needs kind of go down. So I think that's a good spot to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back in a few minutes.
When it seemed like the world had stopped, as if our normal would never be again. Confinement Chronicles.
Still, there were those who held fast to hope. These are their stories. From teachers to dads to nurses on the front line, they have chronicled their messages of hope. Confinement Chronicles, now available. Order today on Amazon, also available in audiobook or at laderopress.com.
Confinement Chronicles.
Millions of Americans are rushed to the hospital every year. 400,000 of them transported by emergency helicopter. Many times it's a life or death flight where every second counts. But the service often comes with a sky-high price tag. Tonight, ABC's chief investigative correspondent, Brian Ross, examines the big business of air ambulances.
You're talking about very critically injured patients, traumas, strokes, heart attacks.
Emergency workers call it the golden hour, the crucial 60 minutes to get medical care for a patient facing death.
Failure to get them to the care probably means that they aren't going to survive.
That urgent need to beat the golden hour clock has spawned a nationwide fleet of helicopter ambulances, saving countless lives. But our Nightline investigation, conducted with ABC stations across the country, also found it has left many of the very people it saved facing financial turmoil, with bills as high as $40,000 or $50,000 for a short flight.
Would you call this price gouging?
Well, some of it is. There's no question that some of it is.
Warren Larson of Owensboro, Kentucky, a helicopter pilot himself, says he was stunned at the cost of the quick flight for his daughter after she was injured in a serious off-road ATV accident. $47,000 for 79 miles. After insurance and a failed negotiation, he still owes $36,000.
It's definitely going to cripple us financially.
He is not alone. With our ABC teams across the country, we found hundreds of families
I'm worried to death about it. It's very stressful worrying about it.
being sued.
I don't have the money to give them, so my wife and my son and myself don't want to being homeless.
Or hounded by debt collectors.
I see the number, I'm like, I know who it is, I don't even want to talk to them.
Over huge bills their insurance won't fully cover.
I feel like I can never dig out.
Some forced into bankruptcy. One after another, patients told us how they felt they had been taken for a ride in more ways than one.
I wasn't asked if I wanted to go on the helicopter. I didn't think I was hurt that bad.
91-year-old Warren Lowe and his wife Ethel were on their way to church in Virginia when an uninsured driver slammed into their minivan.
911, where's your emergency?
Car wreck here on 89. Several people hurt.
Lowe's leg was shattered, and doctors at his local hospital wanted him sent to a trauma center 55 miles away.
Didn't nobody tell me nothing. They just took me and put me in the helicopter and gone.
The cost, $47,000 for a 20-minute helicopter ride.
I couldn't believe it when I looked at it. $47,000, that's ridiculous.
Jean Medina got a $35,000 bill after her teenage daughter, Sophia, on a family vacation, developed complications from a tonsillectomy.
The surgery itself was a total of $16,000, and the helicopters nearly $35,000. It just seems a crazy amount of money.
After insurance and a protracted back and forth, she still owes $17,000. And Medina questions whether her daughter's 37-mile medevac trip was even necessary. It took almost an hour for the helicopter to just arrive and load, and she was able to drive the distance in almost the same amount of time.
I left a few minutes before they took off and ended up arriving at the hospital about 5 minutes after they did.
The decision to call in a helicopter ambulance is made by attending doctors. But the families, like the Larsons of Kentucky, are the ones on the hook for the cost. Warren Larson says he was being treated himself, given morphine, when he signed this consent form for his daughter's medevac trip, which in small print made him personally and fully responsible for the bill.
They said, don't worry about it, it's just a standard form, just to give us permission to transport your daughter.
Nowhere on the standard form does it inform the patient or guardian of the expected cost. State insurance regulators say they have been unable to rein in the prices or tactics of other helicopter ambulance services because of a loophole in the federal law. Al Redmer is the insurance commissioner in Maryland.
When the federal government deregulated the airlines industry, these commercial helicopter companies were part of that.
As if they're a major air carrier.
That's exactly right.
So you can't regulate them because of the FAA rules.
That's exactly right.
They can get away with these charges. They can charge, as you say, whatever they want.
They can. They can.
For Nightline, this is Brian Ross, ABC News, New York.
We want to thank you for watching the show today. You are watching an insurance chat with Debbie. Debbie will return with her special guest in just a moment. We know you all have several questions about the air ambulance, and as we compile those questions to present to Debbie and her guests, we do have just a couple of special announcements for you. Debbie Scarborough has been selected to be a mom during the next virtual Moms in Ministry workshop. It takes place Saturday, November 12th, 2022 at 9:00 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. An insurance chat with Debbie, of course, begins at 8, and then we will transfer directly to the Moms in Ministry. The topic for that particular episode is insuring my child, the importance of insuring your child. If you would like to get an exclusive link to watch the show, please send an email to volusiabusinesswomen@gmail.com. And to learn more about the Moms in Ministry, search for Moms, the letter N, Ministry on Facebook. You are watching an insurance chat with Debbie. The Empress of MS is her special guest today. If you are in the Michigan area or you're up for a trip, the book tour is coming to Southfield. We will be there Saturday, December 3rd, 2022. You may join us for networking. Come out and meet the authors and the entrepreneurs. There will be free gifts for all attendees. For more information, you can call or send a text to 248-702-5559. That's 248-702-5559. Now, if you don't think you're up to the travel to get to Michigan, please feel free to place your ad in our virtual directory. Then we can introduce your products and services throughout our entire tour in 2023. Ad rates are only 50, 30, and 20. And you may receive more information by sending an email to volusiabusinesswomen@gmail.com. Save the date. Bring your family so that everyone can find out more about who you are and what you do. And finally, you are invited to attend a virtual book fair. Books and Besties takes place Sunday, December 11th, 2022 from 2 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Your hosts are Laretha Simon and me, Angie B. Together, we introduce the world to our books and our businesses. Debbie is a past co-host of Books and Besties, and Wendy has also been a very special guest. Today's episode of An Insurance Chat with Debbie is sponsored by Volusia Business Women. Search for Volusia Business Women on YouTube, and you will see a replay of this show. Thank you so much to Volusia Business Women. Now it's time to bring back our host, Debbie Scarborough, for this very interesting insurance chat.
Good morning and welcome back to an insurance chat with Debbie, because insurance doesn't matter until it does. And during that commercial break, you watched a video about why it's so important to have an air and ambulance membership. And I'll bring back Wendy, my special guest. Hey, Wendy, welcome back. I know you just saw the video about air ambulance, and I'm sure in Wisconsin you're seeing a lot more helicopters in your area transporting from hospital to hospital or scene, and probably seen some memberships with those different companies. And have you seen any of those?
I haven't. I was wondering if just if there's like an accident policy and then you can add that coverage onto it, or how it works.
Yeah, down here in Georgia, and I've seen it in several areas, a lot of your helicopter companies are all private, of course, with the deregulation of the airlines. And just because it's such a specialized field, these helicopter companies do offer memberships with them. Of course, they only pay if that helicopter picks you up. So I kind of explain it to people of having AAA. When you purchase AAA insurance and you're driving, they'll send any tow truck who's ever available. Well, with our program we have with MASA, they work that same way. It doesn't matter what helicopter picks you up, doesn't matter which ground ambulance picks you up. They cover those out-of-pocket expenses, because with our health insurance, we look for in-network doctors, in-network hospitals. So we try to stay out of that out-of-network. Well, in an accident situation, you're not looking for the cheapest helicopter or ambulance to come. You just get there.
Yeah.
And you don't make those decisions for the ambulance. Sometimes if you're not the one dialing 911, a neighbor is, or a friend. Or if you're at a hospital, just like one of the gentlemen in the video, they transferred him to a trauma center because you've got lots of trauma centers. So MASA is not an insurance policy, except in the state of Florida. It's a membership. So as a member of MASA, you join and pay a membership fee, and they agree to certain things. The other thing that makes MASA so different from any other membership is they cover anywhere in the world. So it was very popular for those that travel. So, and we have a question about, can I cancel my ambulance ride? And probably yes, if they were there and you signed a waiver not to go, you could probably cancel that. But the sad thing is, when it's an emergency, you probably aren't in the right mind.
Yeah.
And you don't know how much you're going to be charged until you get the bill. And let's face it, I think for those that have gotten, from what I've heard and researched, when people get a high bill, then that does kind of set them up for maybe not wanting to call 911 the next time. So MASA membership gives you that peace of mind of knowing that if I have to go by ground or air, it's covered. Your insurance takes priority and pays what they will or won't, and then MASA takes over. They pay 100%. There's no deductible. There's no co-insurance. There's not even a claim form. And I know, Wendy, with insurance background, you know, insurance companies love claim forms.
They love paper.
So all I do is a lot of my customers that get an ambulance bill or a helicopter bill, I tell them snap a picture of it and text it to me. I send it to MASA and they pay it. And they even go another step further. If you're ever unsure, was my ambulance bill paid? You're going to know it's paid because MASA sends a little letter to you. Thank you, letting you know that your bill was paid. And another thing they do, and I'm 100 miles from home frequently. So if I'm 100 miles from home, where is an ambulance going to take me if a slip and fall or heart attack or an auto accident? It's going to take me to the closest hospital because by law, they have to do that. Well, if I'm expected to be there 3 days, 5 days, 10 days, it may be easier for me to recover closer to home. So MASA will also help arrange getting you transferred closer to home once you're stable. So it's a great little membership that kind of provides that peace of mind. They also, if you're traveling, they'll reimburse an airline ticket for a family member to come be with you. So there's lots of little extra things they do. I find myself talking about the ambulance bills because I sit down with retirees all the time, and they said, "Oh my goodness, my ambulance bill was $3,000 and insurance paid $1,000, and I'm still making payments on it." So a simple membership with MASA. If you're in any state other than Florida, the membership is $27 a month. $35, Wendy, covers you, your husband, and your 2 boys while they're living at home up to age 26. So it's a great membership to have.
It's very interesting.
Yep. And that question came up, is it available to outside of Georgia? And it is. Any state in the United States can purchase this plan. That rate that I just shared is every state except for Florida. Florida still gets a little cheaper rate because in Florida it's considered an insurance policy. And when Massa went up on their rates a couple years ago, I'm sure that had something to do with Florida. So Florida single was $24.17 a month, and couples are $32.50. And the one thing I find very interesting with Massa is, with insurance rates go up all the time. The thing I find interesting and I like about Massa is when they did this rate increase 4 years ago, everybody who signed up to Massa prior to and was paying $24.17 a month are still paying $24.17 a month or $32.50 a month. Only those of us who signed up after that price increase are paying the new rate. So I feel real confident that my $35 a month is going to stay $35 a month as long as I can. And there are some options for 5-year plans and lifetime plans to help save some money. And the good news, Wendy, is there's not a one medical question on Massa's application. Everyone is qualified at all ages. They do have a 60-day waiting period for pre-existing conditions. But other than that, you're covered from the day you sign up.
Wow, sounds really valuable because you're right. When you're in a situation or an accident and you're in shock, you have no idea what's happening and you're just wanting to be taken care of and healed and fixed, and thinking about paying a bill is the last thing on your mind.
Yes, and most of the time you get those bills once you're home and recovered, and that's the last thing because you've already got deductibles for your health insurance and all them. And I know we've all probably experienced an unusual bill after a hospital stay where somebody, either an anesthesiologist or someone within the hospital that came to see you, wasn't in network, so you've got to pay a little more. So it's kind of another one of those hidden things that we don't talk about until you mention it to somebody, and then it's every other person you talk to has had an experience with an ambulance bill that they thought. Most of the retirees that I deal with, if insurance worked perfect in network, their out-of-pocket expense should be $50. But as soon as you use that word out of network, it changes things. And then it also changes things for those that are on Medicare. Because then Medicare, they're all out of network. And then Medicare, my mother's ambulance bill was $900. Medicare only approved $600. So then, of course, I bought a Massa plan for my parents. So I sent it to Massa, and they paid the $245. $245 probably we would have grumbled to pay it and rolled our eyes and complained, but it was nice to send that bill to Massa and it get covered.
Yeah, that sounds like a really valuable plan. So is there a website to go to check out the...
All you have to do is text or call me. I have a brochure that I can email out to anyone or text. And we can sign up over the phone in less than 5 minutes. The good news is the application only needs to know your name, your birthday, your mailing address. You can also list an emergency contact, and then how you want to pay. The good news is Massa takes Visa, MasterCard, American Express, or Discover, or your checking account. And you could sign up through Massa directly from their website, but I encourage everyone to come through us at AMBA because we get a 40% discount. Plus, when you join one of our programs, they waive the $60 application fee.
Oh, okay.
And with Massa, there's no open enrollment. You can join anytime. So, which is nice too. We encourage you not to wait till you think there might be a problem because there is that pre-existing on there for 60 days. but you sign up anytime, and as soon as you call me, I enter it on their website, and your plan is effective that day.
Oh,
The only
wow.
time you have to call MASA is when you're going to leave the United States, because we have a lot of missionaries and people who go, so they want to make sure things are lined up for you if something happens, and then non-emergency transportation. So if I was more than 100 miles from home and I wanted to be transferred to a hospital closer to home, I would call MASA directly. But when you sign up through us, you're approved immediately, and you're authorized for emergency transportation. There's no pre-approval needed.
Wow, that sounds really useful, especially for travel. I mean, you're really, and if you're not in the country, you just really are at the mercy of who's ever showing up to take care of you.
Yes. And the good news about that, we had a couple that were, those people that like to travel when they retire in those, I lost my train of thought, in the RVs. They were in Canada, and she had a heart attack the last day they were there. She was in the hospital for over a week. MASA reimbursed for her son's airline ticket to be with them. So then they didn't want to go home by their RV. MASA got them home and returned their RV to them.
Really?
So they kind of cover those extras. So if you're one of those that want to travel by RV, you've got that comfort of knowing if something happens, they get your vehicle returned, they get your pets returned. And because I work with a lot of the senior market, they're taking grandchildren on vacation. They help get grandchildren home or mommies to them. So it's a great plan. All you have to do is text me or email. My numbers are scrolling at the bottom, and I'll gladly get you the brochure and the application. And just because I'm in Georgia, anybody in the United States can sign up with this plan through me, and I can get you signed up within 5 minutes. Well,
Wow.
Wendy, I am so glad you joined me today. Are there any closing words you would like to share about MS or about yourself?
I think, in dealing with any challenges with our health, it's just important to be your own advocate and to check out all your options. We get caught up in the day-to-day things for life, and we're always putting things off, but it's really important to speak to a professional like you to get everything in order and find out what your options are.
Well, good. Well, thank you for joining me, Wendy. It was a pleasure having you on the show, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you. You as well.
All right.
Take care.
Bye. And thank you for joining me. Any questions or concerns about what we talked about today, please reach out, because insurance doesn't matter until it does. There is a last question. Do you have any policies that pay me while I am in the hospital or under doctor's care? And the answer to that is yes. There are two types of policies. There's a hospital indemnity plan that pays $100 to $750 a day directly to you if you're in the hospital. There's also an accident plan that also pays if you're in the hospital. So depending on what you want to cover, if you're just looking to cover while you're in the hospital, a hospital indemnity plan is the best option to go to, or an accident plan because it covers an array of things that happen. So those are great options if you want to look. The premiums are always based on how many birthdays you've had. So you want to try to get those in place as soon as possible. Most of the hospital indemnity plans, as long as you haven't been in the hospital in the last year or 2 years, you can qualify. So they're a little easier to qualify than a regular medical policy. But I'll be glad to discuss those with you individually. Text me 229-392-6983 or email me at debbie.scarborough@amba.info. And I appreciate you joining me today. and meeting my guest, Wendy. And we will talk to you soon. See you next Saturday morning. Thank you for watching. See you next week.